The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast space. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked through the entrance, her small frame dwarfed by the towering alien structures around her. Behind her followed Colonel Jake Morrison and Peter Brooks, both men keeping their eyes forward as they made their way to the human delegation table. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Curved walls stretched upward for hundreds of feet, covered in symbols from dozens of different species. Light filtered down from crystalline panels in the ceiling, casting strange shadows across the assembled delegates. The air smelled of ozone and something floral that Lisa could never quite identify. At the center of the chamber stood the speaker's platform, a circular structure that could accommodate beings of various sizes and shapes. Around it, and carefully arranged tiers, sat the representatives of 47 different species. Each delegation had been positioned according to their species status within the council hierarchy. The humans sat at table 40-7. Lisa settled into her chair and glanced around at the other delegates. The Drachnari occupied the prime spots near the speaker's platform, their massive reptilian forms draped in ceremonial armor that clinked softly when they moved. General Vexter, their chief representative, stood nearly 8 feet tall with scales that shifted from deep green to angry red depending on his mood. Right now, they were a pleasant amber color. To the left sat the Zephyrians, insectoid creatures with chitinous exoskeletons and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's light. Like mirrors, their movements were quick and precise, almost mechanical. Ambassador Klex, their speaker, occasionally clicked his mandibles in what Lisa had learned was their equivalent of clearing one's throat. The Krathani delegation occupied a section designed for their silicon-based physiology. They looked like living statues carved from granite, their forms both beautiful and intimidating. They rarely spoke, but when they did, their words carried the weight of eons. Other species filled the remaining spaces. The ethereal voidlings floated in their specially designed containment fields, their translucent forms shimmering like heat mirages. The aquatic taurans stayed in their water-filled chambers, their tentacles occasionally pressed against the transparent walls. The Hegemony Coalition, a collection of smaller species, clustered together in their shared section, whispering among themselves in a dozen different languages. And then there were the humans, 3 people sitting at a simple metal table, looking remarkably ordinary compared to the alien majesty surrounding them. Lisa wore a standard diplomatic suit, navy blue with silver trim. Jake wore his military dress uniform, ribbons and medals arranged precisely on his chest. Peter looked like what he was, a young aide fresh out of the diplomatic academy, slightly nervous but trying to hide it. The speaker, a tall humanoid with purple skin and 3 eyes, called the session to order. His voice boomed through the chamber without need for amplification. The Council recognizes the Hegemony Coalition to present their proposal regarding territorial expansion limitations. General Vexter rose from his seat, his scales shifting to a more aggressive orange hue. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. Honored Council, we gather today to address a growing concern. The human species has been expanding into territories that rightfully belong to more established civilizations. He activated a holographic display that showed the disputed star systems, 3 clusters of planets on the edge of human space. These systems contain valuable resources and strategic positions. The humans, in their typical presumptuous manner, have established colonies without proper authorization from the Council. Lisa kept her expression neutral, though she felt Jake tense beside her. They had been through this before, many times. The humans always requested permission through proper channels, always followed established protocols, and always received the same response: denied, pending further review. The Drachnari Empire has historical claims to these systems, Vexter continued, his voice growing louder. Our ancestors explored these regions while humans were still crawling in the dirt of their primitive world. Yet now they dare to plant their flags and claim ownership. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several delegates nodded their approval, particularly the Zephyrians and the smaller species that made up the Hegemony Coalition. Ambassador. Klex stood next, his insectoid form clicking as he moved. The Zephyrian Collective supports our Drachnary allies in this matter. Humans have shown a disturbing pattern of rapid expansion, despite their recent arrival on the galactic stage. They spread across star systems like a plague, consuming resources and disrupting established trade routes. More murmurs of agreement. Lisa noted which species remained silent. The Voidlings showed no reaction as usual. The Taurans seemed more interested in their own discussions. A few of the newer council members appeared uncomfortable with the harsh language, but none spoke up. Furthermore, Klex continued, human military presence in these systems poses a security risk. Their ships may appear primitive, but they have been observing our movements and learning our technologies. This expansion must be stopped before it becomes a threat to council stability. The speaker nodded gravely. The council will hear from the human delegation before proceeding to vote. Lisa stood slowly, gathering her thoughts. She had given variations of this speech dozens of times, always with the same result. But protocol demanded she try again. Honored speaker, respected delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite its relative softness. The Human Federation appreciates the Council's consideration of this matter. We understand the concerns raised by our esteemed colleagues. She activated her own holographic display, showing detailed colony reports. The disputed systems contain 27 human settlements, home to nearly 4 million people. These are not military outposts or resource extraction facilities, but genuine communities. Families have made these worlds their homes. Children have been born there who know no other life. The display shifted to show schools, hospitals, and farms. We have invested tremendous resources in terraforming these worlds, making them habitable, not just for humans, but for other species as well. Our colonies welcome alien visitors and have established trade relationships with over a dozen council member species. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. The evidence of human civilian infrastructure was hard to dismiss, even for those who viewed humans as invaders. The Human Federation has followed all established protocols, Lisa continued. We submitted formal expansion requests through proper channels. We waited for responses that never came. We respected existing territorial claims and avoided systems with prior settlements. We have been nothing but cooperative members of this council. General. Vexler's scales darkened to deep red. Cooperative? You ignore our warnings and establish unauthorized colonies. You refuse to acknowledge superior claims to these territories. This is not cooperation, it is defiance. Lisa turned to face him directly. General, with respect, the Human Federation has never received formal notification of Drachnary claims to these systems. Our surveys found no evidence of previous settlement or resource extraction. We followed standard colonial protocols as established by this council. Your surveys were inadequate, Vexler rumbled. Drachnary exploration of these systems predates human spaceflight by centuries. The fact that you found no evidence merely proves your primitive detection methods. The chamber erupted in scattered laughter and approving sounds from various species. Lisa felt her cheeks redden slightly but maintained her composure. If the council believes our methods are inadequate, she said calmly, we would welcome a joint survey mission to verify all claims. The Human Federation has nothing to hide. The speaker raised his hand for silence. The council will now vote on the Hegemony Coalition proposal to limit human expansion and require the abandonment of colonies in the disputed systems. Lisa knew the outcome before the votes were tallied. 31 species voted in favor of the restrictions, 12 abstained. Only 4 voted against, all of them recent additions to the council who had established profitable trade relationships with human colonies. The motion passes, the speaker announced. The Human Federation will withdraw from the disputed systems within 1 standard year. Compensation for infrastructure investments will be negotiated separately. Lisa stood again, her voice steady. Despite the decision, the Human Federation thanks the Council for their consideration. We request a 72-hour recess to consult with our government regarding compliance measures. The speaker nodded. Granted, this session is adjourned. As the delegates began filing out, Lisa gathered her materials slowly. She could feel the satisfied gazes of the other species, the smug certainty that they had successfully put the upstart humans in their place. Vexter actually smiled as he passed their table, his teeth gleaming in the chamber's light. Jake leaned close to her ear. "Ma'am, we need to talk privately." Lisa nodded, still maintaining her diplomatic smile. "Of course, Colonel." "Peter, please. Prepare the usual reports for Earth. I'm sure President Martinez will want a full briefing." As they walked toward the exit, Lisa heard fragments of conversation from the other delegations. The door to the human quarters slid shut with a soft hiss, sealing them away from the prying eyes and ears of the other species. Lisa Carter stood in the center of the room for a long moment, her diplomatic mask finally beginning to crack. The weight of what had just happened in the council chamber pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. Colonel Jake Morason was the first to break the silence. His fist slammed down on the metal table with a sharp crack that echoed through the small space. 27 colonies, Lisa. They want us to abandon 27 colonies and nearly 4 million people. Peter Brooks looked up from his datapad, his young face pale with shock. "Ma'am, I've been running the numbers. The infrastructure investment alone represents over 200 billion credits. The terraforming equipment, the atmospheric processors, the gravity generators. We can't just walk away from that." Lisa moved to the small viewport that looked out into space. Beyond the protective barriers of Nexus Prime, she could see the swirling colors of the Andromeda Nebula, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. "It's not about the money, Peter. It's about the people. Families who have lived on those worlds for generations. Children who were born there and know no other home." Jake stood and joined her at the viewport. "The Martinez family on New Geneva has been farming there for 30 years. The Johnsons just opened a new medical center on Prosperity Station. Hell, my own sister lives on Colony 7 with her kids." His voice grew harder. "And now we're supposed to tell them all to pack up and leave because some lizard with anger issues says we don't belong there." Peter pulled up a holographic display showing the contested star systems. Each point of light represented a world where humans had built lives, raised families, and created communities. "The Drachnari have been moving their war fleets closer to our borders for months. Intelligence reports show massive troop buildups on their frontier worlds. This isn't about territory rights. They're positioning themselves to take everything we've built." Lisa turned away from the viewport, her expression thoughtful. "What about the Zephyrians? Their fleet movements?" "Even worse," Jake replied, activating additional displays. "The Third Fleet has been conducting training exercises exactly one hyperspace jump from New Geneva. They have enough firepower to reduce that entire system to debris in less than an hour." The room fell silent as they all stared at the tactical displays. The alien fleets were positioned like a noose around human space, waiting for the order to tighten. The Council's vote had been nothing more than a formality, a legal excuse for what was about to happen anyway. Peter's voice was barely above a whisper. "They're going to attack us regardless of what we do, aren't they?" Lisa nodded slowly. "The moment we start evacuating those colonies, they'll interpret it as weakness. They'll demand more concessions, more territory, more restrictions, and if we refuse to evacuate, they'll use it as justification for military action." Jake's jaw clenched. "So we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. They've backed us into a corner where any choice we make gives them what they want." Lisa walked to her desk and sat down heavily. For 2 years, she had served as humanity's voice in the Council, always polite, always diplomatic, always trying to find common ground. She had endured insults, condescension, and outright hostility while maintaining her professional composure. She had smiled and nodded while alien delegates referred to her species as primitive, presumptuous, and worse. "They think we're weak," she said finally, "because we negotiate instead of threatening, because we say please and thank you, Because we follow their rules and respect their protocols. Peter looked confused. But isn't that what diplomacy is supposed to be? Finding peaceful solutions instead of fighting? Lisa's smile was cold and bitter. Peter, do you know why humans developed diplomacy in the first place? The young age shook his head. Because we were too good at war, Jake answered for her. Because when humans fight, we don't just win battles. We end civilizations. Lisa stood and walked to a secured cabinet in the corner of the room. She entered a complex code submitted to a biometric scan and waited for the multiple security systems to disengage. Inside the cabinet was a single small device, no larger than a communication pad. For the past 2 centuries, she said, lifting the device carefully, we've been very good at pretending to be civilized. We've played by their rules, respected their customs, and accepted their condescension because we thought it was the right thing to do. She placed the device on the table where both men could see it. It was sleek and black, with a single red activation button in the center. Small text along the bottom read Emergency Protocol 7, command authorization required. But they don't want our diplomacy, Lisa continued. They want our submission. They want us to crawl back to Earth and stay there while they divide up the galaxy among themselves. Peter stared at the device. What is that? That, Jake said quietly, is what happens when humanity stops being polite. Lisa's fingers hovered over the activation button. Every human fleet commander, every colony governor, every military installation from here to Earth is waiting for this signal. They've been waiting for 2 years, watching alien fleets position themselves around our worlds, listening to alien delegates insult our species, and showing remarkable restraint. She looked up at both men. But I think their patience has reached its limit, and frankly, so has mine. Jake nodded grimly. The alien species think they understand us because they've seen our diplomats and our traders. They think we're soft, because we prefer negotiation to violence. They have no idea what's really waiting for them out there. Lisa pressed the activation button. The device hummed to life, its screen displaying a simple message. Authorization confirmed, broadcasting emergency, Protocol 7, across human space, on every military vessel, colony defense platform, and command center. The same message began appearing on communication screens. It was short, direct, and had been prepared for this exact moment. Attention all commands. This is Ambassador Carter with presidential authorization. Polite mode is hereby deactivated. Repeat, polite mode is deactivated. All units are to reveal full operational capacity and assume defensive positions. Rules of engagement are now unrestricted. Show them what we really are. Peter's face went white. Ma'am, what have we just done? Lisa looked at him with something that might have been pity. Peter, you've been serving in the diplomatic corps for 2 years. In all that time, did you ever wonder why our merchant vessels always seem to have such sophisticated sensor arrays? Why our colony transports were built with such robust hull armor? Why our research stations required such powerful reactors? The young man's mouth opened and closed without sound. Jake smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Every human ship, every human installation, every human colony has been designed and built with one primary purpose: to survive what's coming. We've been preparing for this day since the moment we first encountered alien life. Lisa walked back to the viewport and looked out at the stars. The Draknari think they're dealing with primitive humans who got lucky with some basic technology. The Zephyrians believe we're naive newcomers who don't understand galactic politics. The entire council sees us as weak because we've chosen to be diplomatic. She turned back to her team. They're about to learn that our diplomacy was never weakness. It was mercy. And they just convinced us to stop being merciful. The communication console chimed with an incoming message. Admiral Helen Cross appeared on the screen, her uniform crisp and her expression deadly serious. Ambassador Carter, this is Admiral Cross aboard the Endeavour. We've received your authorization. All human fleets are moving to operational readiness. Request permission to begin Phase 1 of the demonstration. Lisa looked at the Admiral, a woman she had known for over a decade. Helen Cross had been patient, professional, and remarkably restrained while alien fleets positioned themselves around human space. But now there was something different in her eyes, something that promised the galaxy was about to see what humans were really capable of. Permission granted, Admiral. Show them what they've been dealing with. The screen went dark and Lisa turned to her team. Gentlemen, I suggest we return to the council chamber. Our alien friends are about to receive an education in why underestimating humanity is a fatal mistake. Outside the viewport, the first human warships began to decloak. The council chamber felt different when Lisa Carter returned. The same massive doors, the same alien architecture, the same carefully arranged seating. But something had changed in the air itself, a tension that seemed to make the very walls vibrate with anticipation. The alien delegates were already in their seats, chatting among themselves with the satisfied air of victors. General Vexler's scales had shifted to a pleasant blue-green, indicating his good mood. Ambassador Klex was actually preening his antennae, a sign of contentment among his species. Even the usually stoic Crethany seemed more relaxed, their stone-like features showing the faintest hint of satisfaction. Lisa walked to her table with measured steps, Colonel Jake Morrison and Peter Brooks flanking her like before. But everything about their posture had changed. Lisa no longer hunched her shoulders or kept her eyes downcast. Jake's hand rested casually near his sidearm, a gesture that would have been unthinkable in previous sessions. Peter carried himself with new confidence, no longer the nervous aide but something harder. The speaker called the session to order with his usual booming voice. The council recognizes the human delegation for their response to yesterday's decision. Lisa stood slowly, and for the first time in 2 years of attending these sessions, she did not begin with the traditional diplomatic greeting. She did not thank the council for their time or acknowledge their wisdom. Instead, she looked directly at General Vexler and spoke in a voice that carried new authority. Honored delegates, we have considered your proposal regarding human expansion limitations. The pause that followed stretched longer than protocol demanded. Our response is no. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. Several delegates leaned forward in their seats, certain they had misheard. The Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in rapid confusion. Even the voidlings seemed to shimmer with increased intensity. General Vexler rose to his full imposing height, his scales shifting rapidly from blue-green to orange to deep red. The decision has been made, human. The vote was clear. You will comply or face the consequences of defying this council. Lisa's smile was unlike anything the aliens had seen from her before. It was cold, predatory, and utterly without fear. General, I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of our relationship. You seem to think that our politeness was weakness, that our diplomacy was fear, that our cooperation was submission. She activated a holographic display, but instead of showing colony reports or trade statistics, it revealed something that made every alien in the chamber sit up straighter. The display showed detailed intelligence reports on military movements across the galaxy, including classified information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. For the past 6 months, you have been positioning your forces to eliminate human colonies. The Drachnary 2nd and 3rd battle groups have moved to forward positions around our territory. Your supply lines have been extended, your troop transports loaded, your invasion schedules prepared. General Vexler's scales turned almost black with rage. How dare you accuse us of— I'm not accusing, Lisa interrupted, her voice cutting through his protest like a blade. I'm stating facts. The Zephyrian 3rd Fleet has been conducting training exercises exactly 1 hyperspace jump from New Geneva. Not 2 jumps, not 3, but exactly 1. The precise distance needed for a surprise attack. The display shifted to show the Zephyrian fleet positions. Ambassador Klex's compound eyes widened as he saw intelligence reports that detailed not just ship positions but crew rotations, supply schedules, and even the personal communications of his fleet commanders. The Crethani have been building forward supply bases in the neutral zone, Lisa continued relentlessly. Hidden facilities designed to support extended military operations. The Hegemony Coalition has been secretly negotiating with pirate groups to provide irregular forces for actions against human shipping. The chamber had gone completely silent except for the hum of life support systems. Every piece of information Lisa presented was accurate, detailed, and impossible to deny. The aliens were seeing their most closely guarded military secrets laid bare with casual precision. "We knew," Lisa said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper but somehow carrying clearly to every corner of the vast chamber. "We have always known. We have been watching, recording, analyzing every move you've made. We've been inside your communications networks, your military databases, your strategic planning sessions." She clicked to the next display, showing massive human fleet movements that had somehow gone completely undetected by alien intelligence services. Ships that weren't supposed to exist. Formations that defied everything the Council thought they knew about human military capability. "You see, we tried to be your friends. We offered trade agreements that would have made all our species wealthy. We proposed scientific collaborations that would have advanced galactic civilization by centuries. We shared our culture, our art, our knowledge freely." The display showed the true scope of human technological advancement. Ships that could travel faster than anything in the galactic fleet. Weapons that could crack planets. Defensive systems that could stop entire armadas. Manufacturing capabilities that dwarfed the combined output of dozens of alien worlds. We said please and thank you. We followed your protocols and respected your customs. We accepted your insults and your condescension with grace. But you mistook our manners for weakness. You confused our diplomacy with fear. General Vexler tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. "This is impossible. Our intelligence services would have detected. Your intelligence services have been compromised for over a year," Jake Morrison said, speaking for the first time in the session. "Every report they've given you about human capabilities has been carefully crafted to show you exactly what we wanted you to see." Lisa moved closer to the center of the chamber, her presence somehow filling the vast space. "Let me introduce you to the real humanity. The species that looked at a world full of predators and decided it belonged to us. The species that took a planet where everything was trying to kill us and turned it into a garden. The species that looked up at the stars and concluded that they were our destiny." The main display activated, showing live feeds from across the galaxy. The images were clear, real-time, and absolutely terrifying for every alien watching. Human fleets that had been invisible moments before were now revealing themselves around every major alien world. "We are the species that invented warfare not as a tool of conquest, but as an art form. We are the species that turned violence into a science and then chose to pursue peace instead. We are the species that could have conquered this entire galaxy decades ago and decided not to because we hoped you might be worthy of friendship." Admiral Helen Cross appeared on the screen, her gray uniform pristine, her expression colder than the vacuum of space. "Ambassador Carter, all human fleets are now in position. We have visual confirmation of alien fleet movements around our colonies. Requesting permission to demonstrate human defensive capabilities." Lisa looked at the Admiral, then at the stunned faces of the alien delegates. "Admiral, our friends seem to have trouble understanding the situation. Perhaps a demonstration would be educational." The screen split into multiple views showing human colonies throughout the disputed systems. Each view showed the same scene, massive alien fleets surrounding small human settlements, preparing for what should have been an easy conquest. Then the humans stopped hiding. Ships that had appeared to be simple civilian transports suddenly unfolded like deadly flowers, revealing weapon arrays that made alien dreadnoughts look like toys. Sleek destroyers decloaked from positions where they had been invisible for months. Mining platforms transformed into fortress stations with enough firepower to level continents, but the most shocking revelation came from the edges of each system, where space itself seemed to tear open as massive human dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace. These ships were larger than anything the Council had ever seen, their hulls covered in weapons that shouldn't have been possible with known technology, the Draknari fleet around New Geneva. commanded by Admiral Korath, appeared on one of the screens. His reptilian features were twisted with confusion and growing fear. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves immediately. You are in violation of Draknari territorial claims. Admiral Cross's response was delivered in the same tone one might use to discuss the weather. Admiral Korath, these are human defensive forces. We've been here all along. We just stopped pretending we weren't. Similar scenes played out across a dozen star systems. Human fleets revealed themselves around every major alien world, not threatening but simply existing. The message was clear and terrible. Humanity had been capable of ending any of these civilizations at any time, but had chosen not to. The Draknari fleet around New Geneva retreated within minutes, their powerful warships fleeing like startled animals. The same scene repeated across the galaxy as alien commanders realized they were facing something far beyond their understanding. Colonel Morrison stepped forward to address the stunned council. Every species in this chamber could have been conquered years ago. We had the technology, the ships, the military capability. We could have taken your worlds, enslaved your populations. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Not even during the memorial service for the Outer Rim, colonies lost to the plague 20 years ago, had the vast space felt so heavy with silence. The alien delegates sat frozen in their seats, their minds struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Lisa Carter stood at the speaker's platform, no longer the humble diplomat who had been dismissed and condescended to for 2 years. The transformation was complete, and every being in the chamber could see it. Her posture was straight, her gaze unwavering, and her voice carried the authority of a species that had just revealed itself as the apex predator of the galaxy. Admiral Helen Cross materialized on the main display screen, her image crystal clear, despite being transmitted from somewhere deep in space. Her uniform was immaculate, her gray hair pulled back in a perfect regulation style, and her eyes held the cold precision of someone who had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. Ambassador Carter, the Admiral said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute professionalism. All human fleets have assumed defensive positions around our colonies and allied systems. We have passive locks on all alien military vessels within 50 light-years of human space. Requesting permission to proceed with the full demonstration. Lisa nodded slowly, her gaze sweeping across the stunned faces of the council delegates. Permission granted, Admiral. I believe our friends need to understand the complete scope of their miscalculation. The main screen divided into multiple views, each showing a different star system where human colonies existed. But these weren't the peaceful farming communities and research stations that the aliens had expected to find. What they saw instead shattered every assumption they had held about human civilization. The view of New Geneva showed what appeared to be a simple agricultural world with scattered farming settlements. But as the camera angle shifted, the truth became visible. The farming equipment was actually sophisticated manufacturing systems. The grain silos housed massive defensive installations. The irrigation systems were actually planet-wide sensor networks that could track a single ship from 3 star systems away. New Geneva has been producing military equipment for the past 15 years, Admiral Cross explained calmly. Those farming communities you saw in our tourism brochures? They're the most advanced weapons manufacturing facilities in known space. Every human colony operates under the same principle: look peaceful, be prepared for war. The display shifted to show Colony 7, where Jake Morrison's sister lived with her children. The picturesque residential areas and schools were real, but underneath the surface lay something that made the alien delegates lean forward in their seats with growing horror. Colony 7's underground facilities extend for hundreds of kilometers, the Admiral continued. The children attending those schools are receiving educations that would be considered advanced military training by most galactic standards. Every human civilian is also a potential soldier, and every human world is a fortress. General Vexter finally found his voice, though it came out as a strangled whisper. This is impossible. Our surveillance networks would have detected military installations of this size. Our intelligence services monitor all human activities. Admiral Cross's smile was neither warm nor reassuring. General, your intelligence services have been monitoring exactly what we wanted them to monitor. Every report they've filed about human capabilities has been carefully crafted by our specialists. You've been seeing a carefully constructed illusion for over a decade. The screen showed the Drachneri fleet that had been surrounding New Geneva just hours before. The massive reptilian warships, each one the size of a small city, had been positioned to overwhelm what they thought was a defenseless human colony. Now those same ships were fleeing at maximum speed, their powerful engines straining to escape something they couldn't understand. The Drachneri Second Battle Group represents the finest military technology your species has ever produced, Lisa said, her voice carrying across the chamber with quiet authority. Those ships could level continents and crack moons. Your crews are among the most experienced warriors in the galaxy, and they ran from a single human colony's defensive systems. The display zoomed in on the fleeing Drachneri vessels. Admiral Korath appeared on a secondary screen, his reptilian features twisted with confusion and fear. His scales were shifting rapidly through every color of distress his species could display. Human forces, this is Admiral Korath of the Drachneri. Second Battle Group, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. We are withdrawing from this system immediately. We want no conflict with your people. Please confirm that you will not pursue our vessels. Admiral Cross responded with the same professional courtesy she might use when discussing lunch plans. Admiral Korath, human forces will not engage your vessels provided you maintain your current withdrawal trajectory. Have a pleasant journey. The alien delegates watched in stunned silence as the most powerful military force in Drachneri space retreated from what they had thought was a helpless human farming community. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy as alien fleets discovered that every human world they had planned to conquer was actually a military stronghold in disguise. Ambassador Klex of the Zephyrians stood on shaking legs, his insectoid form trembling with agitation. This changes nothing. The council vote was legitimate. You cannot defy the will of 47 species with military threats. Lisa turned to face him directly, and for the first time in 2 years of diplomatic sessions, she didn't smile or nod politely. Ambassador Klex, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This isn't a military threat, this is a revelation. We're not threatening to attack anyone. We're simply showing you what we've always been capable of. The display shifted to show the Zephyrian Third Fleet, positioned exactly one hyperspace jump from New Geneva. The insectoid ships were marvels of engineering, their chitinous hulls gleaming with organic beauty. But as the view expanded, it became clear that they were completely surrounded by human vessels that had been invisible moments before. The Zephyrian Third Fleet has been conducting training exercises near our territory for 6 months, Admiral Cross noted. During that time, our ships have been observing your tactics, analyzing your technology, and preparing countermeasures. Your fleet commanders never knew they were being watched. Commander Kelther of the Zephyrian Fleet appeared on screen, his compound eyes reflecting the light from his ship's control panels. Unknown human vessels, you are in violation of neutral space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came not from Admiral Cross, but from a new voice, younger and somehow more dangerous. Commander Kelther, this is Captain Ryan Walsh of the human vessel Defiant. You are currently surrounded by 47 human ships that have been tracking your every movement for the past 6 months. Would you like to reconsider your position? The Zephyrian commander's mandibles clicked rapidly as his sensors began detecting the human ships that had been invisible moments before. What had seemed like empty space was suddenly filled with sleek, predatory vessels that moved with deadly precision. Impossible, Kelther whispered. Our sensors show no contacts. Your sensors show exactly what we want them to show, Captain Walsh replied. Now, would you prefer to withdraw with dignity, or shall we discuss this further? The Zephyrian fleet began its retreat within minutes, their proud organic ships fleeing from an enemy they couldn't even detect until it was too late. Colonel Morrison stepped forward to address the council, his military bearing now fully visible. Every species in this chamber has been planning our destruction for months. You positioned your fleets, prepared your invasion plans, and coordinated your attacks. But you never asked yourselves one simple question: what if the humans aren't as weak as they appear? The display showed tactical analyses of every major alien fleet in the galaxy. Movement patterns, supply lines, communication protocols, even the personal habits of individual commanders. The depth of human intelligence gathering was staggering. "We know the name of every ship captain in the Draknari fleet," Morrison continued. "We know the deployment schedules of every Zephyrian squadron. We know the locations of every Krithini supply depot and every Hegemony Coalition meeting. We've been preparing for this day since the moment we first encountered alien life." Lisa returned to the center of the chamber, her presence somehow filling the vast space despite her small human frame. "The question now is simple. Do you want to be our friends or do you want to be our enemies? Because for the first time in galactic history, you're making that choice with complete knowledge of what either option means." The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien delegate understood that they were witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. The galaxy had just learned that the species they had dismissed as primitive and weak was actually the most powerful force in known space, and they had learned it by watching humanity choose to be merciful instead of victorious. The demonstration was over, but the real test was just beginning. The council chamber remained frozen in absolute silence for what felt like an eternity. The alien delegates sat in their seats like statues, their minds struggling to process the complete reversal of everything they thought they knew about the galaxy's power structure. The humans had gone from being the weakest species in the chamber to revealing themselves as the most powerful force in known space. Lisa Carter stood at the center of the vast room, no longer the humble diplomat who had endured years of condescension and insults. The transformation was complete and irreversible. Every being in the chamber could see that the balance of galactic power had shifted permanently, and they were all trying to understand what that meant for their futures. General Vexler was the first to break the silence. His massive reptilian form rose slowly from his seat, his scales shifting through colors that indicated deep confusion and growing fear. When he spoke, his voice lacked the commanding authority it had held just hours before. "Human ambassador," he said, his words careful and measured, "what you have shown us today changes the fundamental nature of galactic politics. If your species possesses such capabilities, why have you hidden them? Why pretend to be weak when you could have demanded respect from the beginning?" Lisa turned to face him directly, and her expression was neither angry nor triumphant. Instead, it held something that might have been sadness. "General, you've answered your own question. We hid our capabilities because we hoped we wouldn't need them. We pretended to be weak because we wanted to be your friends, not your conquerors." She gestured to the displays still showing human fleets positioned around alien worlds. "Every ship you see, every weapon system, every defensive installation was built not to attack you, but to protect ourselves from you. We've been preparing for this day since our first contact with alien life, hoping it would never come." Ambassador Klex of the Zephyrians stood next, his insectoid form trembling with agitation. "But this level of deception, this manipulation of our intelligence services, this is not the behavior of a peaceful species. You have been lying to us for years." Colonel Morrison stepped forward, his military bearing now fully visible. "Ambassador Klex, every species in this chamber has been preparing for war against humanity. Your fleets have been positioned around our colonies for months. Your intelligence services have been mapping our defenses. Your governments have been planning our destruction. We simply did it better." The main display activated again, showing President Martinez from Earth, the leader of the Human Federation, appeared older than his years, his weathered face bearing the weight of difficult decisions. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began. His words broadcast not just to the Council but to every inhabited world in known space. "Today marks a turning point in galactic history. For too long, humanity has been treated as a junior partner in galactic civilization. We have been dismissed, condescended to, and threatened by species who believe themselves superior. The president's image was joined by similar broadcasts from human colonies across the galaxy. Ordinary citizens who had been farming, teaching, and building communities revealed themselves as something far more dangerous. The farmers were engineers who had been constructing planetary defense systems. The teachers were strategists who had been preparing the next generation for conflict. The peaceful colonists were soldiers who had been waiting for this day. The Human Federation has made a decision, President Martinez continued. We will no longer pretend to be less than we are. We will no longer ask permission to exist. We will continue to honor our agreements and respect the rights of other species. But we will not be diminished or constrained by those who mistake our kindness for weakness. The chamber erupted in whispered conversations as delegates from different species tried to understand what this meant for their own civilizations. The Taurans in their water-filled chambers pressed their tentacles against the glass, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in complex sequences. The voidlings shimmered with increased intensity, their translucent forms seeming to pulse with nervous energy. Lisa raised her hand for silence, and the chamber immediately quieted. The gesture itself was telling. Hours before, she would have waited patiently for permission to speak. Now, her simple movement commanded instant attention from dozens of alien species. The Human Federation is not interested in conquest, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. We are not interested in domination or subjugation. We want the same things we have always wanted: peace, trade, cooperation, and the freedom to explore the galaxy alongside our neighbors. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. But we will no longer tolerate being treated as inferiors. We will no longer accept restrictions on our expansion based on the presumption that we don't deserve the same rights as other species. And we will no longer allow ourselves to be threatened by those who believe we are too weak to defend ourselves. The speaker, who had remained silent throughout the demonstration, finally found his voice. Ambassador Carter, what you are proposing represents a fundamental change in the galactic order. The Council has maintained peace for over 1,000 years through established protocols and hierarchies. If every species suddenly decided to ignore Council authority, Mr. Speaker, Lisa interrupted, and the fact that she dared to cut off the Council's leader sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Council has maintained peace through the threat of force. The stronger species have dictated terms to the weaker ones. We are simply announcing that we are no longer one of the weaker ones. Admiral Cross reappeared on the main display, her image flanked by the flags of the Human Federation and Earth. All human fleets have been instructed to maintain defensive positions only. We will not fire the first shot in any conflict, but we will finish any fight that others choose to start. General Vexler S. Scales had shifted to a deep purple, indicating resignation and acceptance. What guarantees do we have that humanity will not use this revealed power to dominate other species? What prevents you from becoming the very thing you claim to oppose? Lisa's expression softened slightly. General, the only guarantee we can offer is our track record. We have had the capability to conquer every species in this chamber for decades. We chose not to. We could have taken your worlds, enslaved your populations, and stripped your planets of resources. Instead, we offered trade agreements and cultural exchanges. She gestured to the displays showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. Look at our worlds, General. Do you see slave camps or strip mines? Do you see conquered populations or devastated environments? You see schools and hospitals, farms and research centers, families and communities. That is what humanity builds when given the choice. The Crethani representative, who had remained silent throughout the entire session, finally spoke. The silicon-based being's voice was like grinding stone, ancient and heavy with wisdom. The humans speak truth. Their colonies have been open to all species. Their research has been shared freely. Their trade has been fair and beneficial. They have behaved as allies even when treated as inferiors. The statement carried enormous weight. The Crithini were the oldest species in the Council, their civilization spanning millennia. Their endorsement meant more than any vote or treaty. Ambassador Klex clicked his mandibles nervously. But the military preparations, the deception, the hidden capabilities, were necessary because you forced them to be necessary, the Crithini continued. A species that trusts completely does not survive contact with those who would exploit that trust. The humans learned to be prepared while hoping they would never need to be. Lisa walked to the speaker's platform, her movement confident and unhurried. The Council has a choice to make. You can treat humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization, or you can treat us as a threat to be eliminated. But you can no longer treat us as inferiors to be managed. She activated one final display, showing the current positions of every major fleet in the galaxy. Human forces were positioned not just around their own colonies, but within striking distance of every alien homeworld. The message was clear. Humanity could end any civilization in the galaxy within hours, but they were choosing not to. We are offering you the same choice we made centuries ago, Lisa said. You can choose to be civilized, or you can choose to be conquered, but you cannot choose to be both superior and unprepared. The Council session ended with a unanimous vote to establish humanity as a permanent member of the Security Committee, and to recognize full human expansion rights throughout the galaxy. The vote was not born of respect or friendship, but of the simple understanding that the alternative was extinction. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many avoiding eye contact with the human delegation, Lisa Carter remained at the center of the room. She had spent 2 years being polite, diplomatic, and patient. Now she represented a species that had chosen to be civilized not from weakness, but from overwhelming strength. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in human history, that was exactly how it should be. Colonel Morrison approached her as the chamber emptied. "Think they'll remember this lesson, ma'am?"